She thought he was the maintenance guy, until he became her boss on Monday. By Friday afternoon, half the office had already decided the new boss would be terrible. The other half thought he would be worse. Chloe Martinez belonged firmly to the second group. The Seattle branch of North Star Design had spent 3 weeks preparing for a leadership change. Their regional director had retired unexpectedly, corporate headquarters was sending someone new, and nobody seemed to know much about him. That uncertainty was making everyone nervous, especially Chloe, because uncertainty had a way of finding her paycheck. She stood near the office coffee machine staring at an email labeled Monday Morning All Hands Meeting, while her coworker Jenna dramatically predicted the future. He'll cut staff. He hasn't even arrived yet. That's exactly what someone planning layoffs would do. That makes no sense. It makes emotional sense, which unfortunately was how most office rumors worked. By 5 o'clock, Chloe's stress level was high enough to qualify as a weather system. She grabbed her laptop bag, said goodnight to the remaining employees, and headed toward the elevators. The building was nearly empty. The doors opened. She stepped inside, and immediately noticed she wasn't alone. A man crouched beside the control panel with a toolbox open beside him. The elevator lights flickered once, then stabilized. "Sorry," he said. "Maintenance." Chloe nodded. That explained everything. Jeans, work boots, gray t-shirt, toolbox, definitely maintenance. The man looked about 30, tall, broad shoulders, dark hair that seemed permanently unwilling to cooperate. He smiled politely before returning to the exposed panel. Chloe pressed the lobby button. The elevator moved, then stopped, halfway between floors. The lights blinked, the elevator sighed dramatically, and everything went still. For 3 seconds nobody spoke. Then Chloe closed her eyes. "Perfect." The maintenance guy glanced up. "You okay?" "I work in corporate design. Being trapped in a metal box is actually less stressful than most meetings." His mouth twitched. The emergency light flickered on. "Should only take a few minutes," he said. Famous last words. He laughed softly. The sound was surprisingly warm. Not that Chloe paid attention to things like that. At least not intentionally. The maintenance guy returned to the control panel. Chloe leaned against the wall, and because stress had completely eroded her ability to filter thoughts, she started talking. "At least if I die in here, I won't have to meet the new regional director." The man looked over his shoulder. "Bad feeling about him?" "Statistically? Yes. Absolutely." "Interesting." Chloe shrugged. Every time corporate sends someone new, they arrive with words like efficiency and restructuring. The maintenance guy nodded thoughtfully. "Those are dangerous words." "Exactly. Very suspicious vocabulary." "Thank you." He looked serious. "I've never trusted restructuring." Chloe pointed at him. "You get it." "I'm trying." The elevator remained stubbornly motionless, which gave Chloe more time to complain. A mistake. For everyone involved, especially her future self. "I mean, nobody even knows what this guy looks like." The maintenance worker adjusted a wire. "Maybe that's intentional. Maybe he's hiding." "From what?" "Employees." "Fair concern." "Or maybe he's one of those executives who thinks eye contact is beneath him." The man bit the inside of his cheek. "Hard. That's very specific." "I've worked in corporate America." "Right," she continued, and unfortunately gained momentum. The maintenance worker became the unwilling audience for 10 full minutes of workplace frustration. The budget cuts, the pointless meetings, the executives who used phrases like synergy optimization, the mysterious incoming director, the fact that nobody trusted headquarters, the fact that she definitely didn't trust headquarters. At one point she even said, "If the new guy starts talking about maximizing productivity, I'm hiding in a supply closet." The man laughed so suddenly he nearly dropped his screwdriver. "You've really thought this through." "Oh, I'm prepared." "You have a plan?" "I have several." The elevator finally jerked back to life. Slowly descending, the man stood, closing his toolbox. "Good." "What?" "The supply closet strategy." Chloe frowned. "Why?" "Because every workplace needs contingency planning." The elevator doors opened into the lobby. Freedom. Beautiful freedom. Chloe stepped out, then hesitated. "Thanks for fixing it." "Happy to help. You know, if the new boss turns out terrible, I may need a recommendation for a good hiding place." His smile widened. "I'll keep that in mind." Then they went separate ways. Chloe never even learned his name, which would become a problem approximately 62 hours later. Monday morning arrived with all the grace of a tax audit. The entire office gathered in the conference room. Coffee cups, nervous smiles, corporate anxiety. Chloe sat beside Jenna. "I don't feel well." "You're fine." "No, I have a feeling." "You always have a feeling. That's because life keeps proving me right." The room quieted. A representative from headquarters stepped onto the stage. Introductions began. Polite applause followed. Then came the final announcement. "Please join me in welcoming our new regional director." The doors opened. A man walked toward the front of the room, jeans replaced by a blazer. Toolbox gone, hair slightly more organized, but unmistakably the same person. The maintenance guy, the elevator guy, the man who had listened to her complain about corporate leadership for 10 uninterrupted minutes. Chloe stopped breathing. Beside her, Jenna whispered, "Oh my God." On stage, the man took the microphone. His eyes found Chloe immediately. Of course they did. There were only so many people who had accused him of potential executive crimes before officially meeting him. A slow smile appeared. Not cruel, not triumphant, almost amused. "Good morning, everyone." The room fell silent. "My name is Noah Bennett." Pause. "I'm very excited to be here." Another pause. His gaze briefly returned to Chloe. "And I look forward to hearing your thoughts." Several people nodded politely. Chloe considered launching herself directly into the sun. It seemed like the most reasonable option available. For the first 20 minutes of Noah Bennett's introduction, Chloe heard almost nothing. She saw his mouth moving and slides changing behind him. She saw her coworkers nodding with the careful expressions of people trying to look open-minded while mentally updating their resumes. But all Chloe could hear was her own voice from Friday afternoon. "If the new guy starts talking about maximizing productivity, I'm hiding in a supply closet." She wanted to crawl under the conference table and become part of the carpet. Noah, unfortunately, looked completely calm. Worse than calm, amused, not openly, not enough for anyone else to notice. But Chloe noticed. Every time his eyes moved in her direction, her soul attempted to resign. By lunch, the entire office knew something had happened. They did not know what. That did not stop them from building theories. Jenna found Chloe in the break room staring into the refrigerator without seeing anything. "You look like someone deleted your future." Chloe closed the fridge. "I may have insulted our new boss." "How badly?" "Elevator badly. That was enough." By 2 o'clock, someone had started a betting pool. Not officially, of course. North Star Design had policies. Unofficially, the office wanted to know whether Chloe would be fired by Wednesday, Friday, or after one humiliating private meeting. Her sister Ava found out by 3:15 p.m. Chloe had made the mistake of texting her, "I accidentally complained about my new boss to my new boss," before knowing he was my new boss. Ava, an emergency room nurse with absolutely no mercy, called immediately and laughed so hard she could barely breathe. For the rest of the afternoon, Chloe received supportive messages such as, "Do you want me to bring flowers to your career funeral?" And, "At least you made a strong first impression. Ask if the supply closet is hiring." Chloe considered blocking her. At 4 o'clock, an email arrived from Noah Bennett. Subject, "Quick chat." Chloe stared at it until the words blurred. Jenna leaned over the cubicle wall. "It was nice knowing you." Chloe grabbed her notebook, walked to Noah's temporary office, and knocked like a condemned woman with good posture. The office still looked unused. A laptop, 2 boxes, no framed motivational quotes, which Chloe considered a small mercy. Noah stood when she entered. He did not look angry. That somehow made it worse. He asked her to sit. Chloe sat on the edge of the chair, hands folded so tightly her knuckles ached. She expected a warning, a lecture, maybe a polite corporate version of revenge. Instead, Noah opened a notebook, a very familiar notebook. He had written things down. From the elevator, Chloe's stomach dropped. He had remembered almost everything. The wasted design review process. The delays caused by executives approving projects without talking to the teams doing the work. The broken coffee machine that had become, in her words, a morale hazard. The supply closet joke. Especially the supply closet joke. He quoted it once. Very mildly. Chloe nearly left her body. But then Noah did something she had not expected. He asked which parts she had meant, not as a trap, as a question. At first, Chloe answered carefully, too carefully. She used safe workplace phrases and polished language that meant almost nothing. Noah listened, then waited. The silence did what pressure could not. Eventually, Chloe stopped protecting herself. She explained that the branch was not failing because employees were lazy. It was failing because decisions came down too late. Feedback loops were broken, and designers were spending more time fixing avoidable problems than doing meaningful work. She told him junior employees were afraid to speak because the previous director rewarded agreement over honesty. She told him the office did not need another motivational speech. It needed someone to remove the obstacles everyone had learned to work around. Noah took notes, not like a man preparing ammunition, like someone who had actually come to learn. By the end of the meeting, Chloe was still terrified, but now she was also confused, because Noah had not punished her. He had listened. The next morning, he proved it. At the all-staff meeting, Noah introduced 3 immediate changes: shorter approval chains, rotating design input sessions before leadership decisions, anonymous issue submissions that would be reviewed weekly. Then he mentioned the coffee machine. The room stirred. Apparently nothing united employees like caffeine suffering. Noah said morale problems were rarely about coffee alone, but if people had complained about it for 8 months and no one had fixed it, then the machine had become a symbol. A new one would arrive by Friday. Chloe stared at him. That phrase, the coffee machine as a symbol, had been hers. She had said it in the elevator. Half ranting, half joking, he had remembered, and used it, not to embarrass her but to change something. Across the conference room, Jenna slowly turned to Chloe with wide eyes. The betting pool died that afternoon, not because everyone stopped gossiping, because the office found a better subject. Their new boss might actually be paying attention, and Chloe, who had spent the weekend preparing for professional death, began to understand something far more dangerous. Noah Bennett had not forgotten a single careless thing she said, but somehow he had heard the truth inside it. Over the next few weeks, Chloe discovered something deeply inconvenient. Noah Bennett was difficult to dislike. She had spent an entire weekend preparing for professional disaster. Instead, she found herself working directly with him more often than anyone else on the design team. At first, she assumed it was punishment disguised as collaboration. Then she realized Noah treated everyone the same way. He asked questions. He listened. And most confusing of all, he actually changed things based on the answers. The office wasn't used to that. Years under the previous director had trained people to speak carefully. Feedback was something employees gave only when absolutely necessary, and even then they expected it to disappear into a corporate black hole. Noah seemed determined to reverse that culture. The strangest part was how little he acted like an executive. One morning, Chloe arrived early and found him carrying boxes of printer paper. Another day he helped the facilities team move furniture. Once he spent 20 minutes crawling under a conference table fixing loose cables before an important client presentation. People kept assuming he was helping temporarily. Then they realized he genuinely didn't care whether a task looked important. If it needed doing, he did it. That made everyone suspicious. Corporate America had damaged their trust. One Thursday morning, the office coffee machine finally died. Not dramatically, just quietly. After years of loyal service, it stopped producing coffee and surrendered to fate. The reaction was immediate. Designers wandered through the office looking emotionally compromised. Project managers stared into empty mugs like philosophers confronting mortality. Someone sent a company-wide email titled, "This is a difficult time for all of us." By 10 o'clock, a crowd had gathered around the machine. Noah appeared. Looked at the machine, looked at the crowd, then rolled up his sleeves. "Maintenance already called?" "Yes," someone answered. "They won't be here until tomorrow." Noah nodded, then crouched beside the machine. "What are you doing?" Chloe asked. "Fixing it." Several employees laughed, not because they were rude, because he was the regional director. Regional directors did not repair coffee machines. Regional directors created PowerPoint presentations about coffee machine efficiency. Noah ignored them. 30 minutes later, the machine worked. Nobody knew how. Nobody understood why. One employee actually applauded. By lunch, The story had spread through the entire building. The new boss apparently knew plumbing, electrical work, office management, budgeting, and espresso machine repair. Chloe eventually asked him about it. His answer surprised her. "I didn't start in management." "Really?" Noah laughed. "Not even close." Over the next several weeks, pieces of his history emerged naturally. He had worked warehouse shifts while attending community college, spent years loading trucks, worked as a maintenance technician, managed facilities teams, supervised operations, only later moved into leadership roles. Everything about him suddenly made more sense. He wasn't pretending to respect the people doing difficult jobs. He had been one of them. For Chloe, that changed something. She had grown up watching her father work long hours as an electrician. She knew what it felt like when people assumed skilled labor was somehow less valuable than office work. Noah never made that distinction. The janitor received the same respect as a senior manager. The intern received the same attention as department heads. He remembered names, birthdays, family situations. People noticed, and because people noticed, they started caring more too. One evening, Chloe stayed late working on a retail redesign proposal. Most of the office had gone home. Noah was still there, reviewing budgets, answering emails, doing the endless invisible work leadership required. At some point she looked up and found him replacing a broken light bulb in the hallway. She laughed. "You know there are people for that, right? Eventually, you are literally the regional director. The light doesn't know that." Chloe rolled her eyes, but she couldn't stop smiling. That was becoming a problem, because somewhere between the elevator disaster and the coffee machine repair, Noah had stopped being simply her boss. He had become someone she genuinely looked forward to seeing, someone whose approval mattered more than it should, someone who made difficult days easier. Meanwhile, Noah found himself increasingly distracted by Chloe, not because she agreed with him, quite the opposite. Most employees filtered their opinions around management. Chloe seemed physically incapable of doing so. If she thought an idea was bad, she said so. If she disagreed, he knew immediately. If something frustrated her, the entire room usually found out. At first, Noah found it amusing, then valuable, then unexpectedly refreshing. One afternoon during a project review meeting, a dozen people sat around a conference table, nodding politely through a presentation. Everyone appeared supportive. Chloe finally raised her hand, then proceeded to explain exactly why the proposed layout would fail. Not dramatically, just honestly. The room became quiet. Noah listened, asked questions, looked at the numbers, then agreed with her. Afterward, several co-workers thanked Chloe privately. Nobody had wanted to challenge the proposal. Everyone had been relieved when she did. As they left the meeting, Noah walked beside her. "You know most people try harder to impress their boss," Chloe groaned. "Please don't remind me about the elevator." "I wasn't. You were thinking about it." "I think about it at least twice a week." She covered her face. Noah laughed, and for a brief moment, neither of them noticed how naturally they were smiling at each other. What started as embarrassment had slowly become something else, something warmer, something neither of them was quite ready to name. But for the first time since Noah arrived, Chloe found herself forgetting he was her boss, and remembering he was a man she genuinely admired. The Johnson Miller Hotel proposal changed the rhythm of the office. It was the largest project North Star Design had touched in 2 years, a boutique hotel renovation with a tight deadline, nervous investors, and a client who changed opinions the way other people changed socks. For 3 weeks, Chloe and Noah worked late almost every night. At first, the extra hours were strictly professional: floor plans, material samples, budget revisions, client notes. Then slowly, the conversations between tasks became harder to classify. Noah told Chloe he grew up in a small apartment above a laundromat, with a mother who worked night shifts, and a father who disappeared whenever bills became too real. He got his first warehouse job at 17, not because he was ambitious, but because rent was due. Chloe told him about her father coming home with burned hands and tired eyes after electrical jobs, and how she learned early that people respected polished presentations more than the people who built the walls those presentations were shown on. She admitted that she always felt like she had to prove she belonged in rooms where other people seemed born comfortable. Noah understood that too well. That was the dangerous part. Understanding. It made the late nights feel intimate, even when they were sitting 3 feet apart under fluorescent lights, arguing about carpet texture. Chloe began bringing extra coffee. Noah began saving her the last blueberry muffin from the cafe downstairs. Neither mentioned it. Everyone noticed. Jenna noticed. Ava noticed through texts alone, which Chloe found disturbing. Even the office seemed to notice, becoming quieter whenever the two of them laughed in the conference room after dark. Still, Noah kept careful boundaries. He never touched her unnecessarily, never complimented anything too personal, never let a conversation drift too long before returning to work. And somehow, that restraint made Chloe want him more. The project finished on a Thursday night at 11:42 p.m. The final renderings were sent. The budget was approved. The client replied with 3 words, "This is perfect." Chloe stared at the screen, then laughed from sheer exhaustion. Noah leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For a moment, they simply sat in the empty office, surrounded by coffee cups, fabric samples, and the strange quiet that follows surviving something difficult together. Chloe stood to gather the files. Her hand brushed his. Both of them stopped. It was nothing, less than nothing, but after weeks of not saying what they both knew, it felt like a confession. Noah looked at her. Chloe did not step back. For one suspended second, the whole office seemed to hold its breath. He moved closer. So did she. Almost. Close enough that Chloe could see the exhaustion in his eyes, and the want. Then Noah stepped back, carefully and painfully. "I'm your boss," he said. The words landed harder than a rejection, because they were not rejection. They were responsibility. Chloe looked away first. "Right." His voice softened. "Chloe, no, you're right." She forced a smile that fooled neither of them. The room felt colder now. More fluorescent, less magical. Noah picked up his jacket, jaw tight, eyes full of everything he refused to take. That night, Chloe drove home with the radio off. For the first time, she understood that wanting someone was not always the hardest part. Sometimes the hardest part was respecting the line that kept both of you safe. The Johnson Miller Hotel project should have saved the branch. For 1 week, it looked like it would. The client praised the redesign. The investors approved the concept. The office celebrated with grocery store cupcakes and the kind of exhausted joy that came after weeks of surviving on caffeine and shared panic. Then corporate called. There was a problem, not with Chloe's design or the team's work. The issue came from a budget approval change made above Noah's level, a last-minute executive decision that promised the client savings without confirming supplier costs. By the time anyone caught it, the numbers no longer matched the proposal. The client was furious. Corporate wanted someone accountable, someone visible, someone replaceable enough to calm the situation. Noah became that someone. The atmosphere in the office shifted overnight. Meetings grew quiet. Emails became careful. People who had laughed beside Noah a week earlier now avoided his office door, as if loyalty might be contagious. Chloe watched him carry the blame with a calmness that made her angry. He did not throw anyone under the bus. He did not name the executive who had changed the numbers. He did not blame the design team. Instead, he stood in front of everyone and said the failure was his responsibility. That was the moment Chloe knew. Not because he was noble, because it hurt to watch him disappear behind duty. She loved him, and there was nothing romantic about realizing it while he was being quietly destroyed. 2 days later, Noah was asked to resign. The word spread through the office before lunch. By 3, Chloe found him packing his office. Not dramatically, just one cardboard box, a notebook, a jacket, the coffee mug someone had given him after he fixed the machine. He looked up when she entered. "I'm protecting the team," he said, before she could speak. Chloe hated that he knew exactly why she was there. "This wasn't your fault." "No, but it happened under me." "That's not the same thing. To corporate, it is." Her hands shook at her sides. "So you're just leaving?" "If I fight this publicly, they'll start looking for other names. Yours, Jenna's, everyone who touched the project." Chloe felt the fear rise, old and familiar, the fear of being too small in a room full of people with titles. Then something steadier rose beneath it. For once, she did not shrink. The next morning, Chloe walked into the board review with a folder, a flash drive, and every ounce of courage she had spent years pretending she already had. Noah was there. So were 3 executives from headquarters. He looked at her like he wanted to stop her. She didn't let him. Chloe presented the timeline. Emails, approval records, supplier quotes, the exact moment the budget changed. The names attached to those decisions. Just clear. For the first time in her career, she did not soften the truth to make powerful people comfortable. When one executive tried to interrupt, Chloe kept going. Her voice did not shake. Noah sat very still. By the end, the room had changed. Enough for corporate to realize firing Noah would not erase the facts. Enough for the branch to stop being the easy sacrifice. Outside the conference room, Noah caught up with her. "You shouldn't have done that." Chloe turned. "Yes," she said, "I should have." His expression broke slightly. "You could have risked your job." "So did you. That was different." "No, Noah, that's the point. It wasn't." For a moment, neither moved. Everything unsaid between them stood there too. The almost kiss. The line he had drawn. The truth she had defended. Then Chloe added quietly, "You taught us that people matter more than titles." "I was just paying attention." Noah looked at her like she had just fixed something in him he didn't know was broken. And this time, Chloe did not look away. 3 months later, the Johnson Miller Hotel opened on schedule. No one at corporate called it a miracle. They called it a successful recovery of a complex account, because corporations had a talent for making redemption sound like a quarterly report. But the branch knew the truth. The project survived because people finally told the truth, and because Noah Bennett had built a team brave enough to do it. Noah was not fired. The executive who changed the budget was quietly reassigned to a role with a longer title and fewer decisions. Chloe did not get punished. In fact, she was asked to lead the next major concept review. She said yes before fear could talk her out of it. Everything should have felt perfect. But nothing was simple. Noah was staying with North Star, just not in Seattle. Corporate offered him another branch across the state, one that needed rebuilding even more badly than theirs had. It was a promotion in every way except the one that mattered to Chloe. He would no longer be her boss. He would also no longer be nearby. On his last Friday, the office threw him a farewell lunch. The new coffee machine was decorated with a tiny paper crown. Jenna gave a speech that made 3 people cry and 1 person pretend to check email. Ava sent Chloe a text. "This is your moment. Do not emotionally trip over furniture." Chloe ignored it. After everyone left, she found Noah near the elevators with 1 box in his hands. The same elevators, of course. He looked at her and smiled softly. "So," he said, "if we met again in an elevator, would you still think I'm maintenance?" Chloe laughed. "No." He sighed dramatically. "That's disappointing. I'd think you're the guy who fixes things." His expression changed. Chloe stepped closer. "No matter what your job title says." For a moment, the hallway was quiet. Then Noah set down the box. Carefully, like he was setting down every reason he had been holding himself back. "I'm not your boss anymore," he said. "Technically, you still are until 5. He checked his watch. 4:58. Chloe smiled. "We can wait 2 minutes." They did, standing there in the hallway like 2 people who had waited much longer than that already. At 5 o'clock, Noah reached for her hand. This time, there was no line between them that mattered more than the truth. The elevator doors opened. Chloe looked inside, then back at him. "Try not to get trapped with any angry employees." "I make no promises." They stepped in together. As the doors closed, Noah glanced at the control panel. "You know," he said, "this thing still makes a weird sound between floors." Chloe leaned against the wall. "Maintenance should really look at that." Noah turned to her, amused. "Should I be offended?" "No," she said. "You should be useful." He laughed, and when the elevator began to move, Chloe remembered the first time they had stood there. Her ranting, him listening, both of them mistaken in different ways. Now there was no toolbox, just 2 people who had learned that first impressions could be wrong, and still lead somewhere right. Dating Noah Bennett turned out to be surprisingly inconvenient. Noah's new branch was 3 hours away, which meant their relationship began with calendars, bad highway coffee, and video calls where one of them was always exhausted enough to forget what they were saying mid-sentence. Ava called it romance with mileage reimbursement. Chloe called it temporary. Noah called it worth it. That was the kind of thing he said quietly, without drama, usually while carrying her suitcase or fixing something in her apartment she had not admitted was broken. Their first real date happened 2 weeks after he moved. No conference room, no corporate policy hovering over them like a judgmental ghost, just a small Italian restaurant halfway between their cities where Chloe arrived 10 minutes late because traffic was terrible and Noah stood when he saw her like she was worth waiting for. She almost made a joke, then didn't. Because sometimes sincerity deserved to survive unmocked. They learned each other slowly. Chloe learned Noah hated olives but kept forgetting that he hated olives until they were already on his plate. Noah learned Chloe became terrifyingly competitive at trivia night and once argued with a host over whether teal counted as blue. Chloe learned he sent practical texts that somehow became romantic. Your tire pressure is low. Also, I miss you. Noah learned she used humor when she was scared, and that if she said, I'm fine, while alphabetizing receipts, she was absolutely not fine. Some weekends he came to Seattle, other weekends she drove to him. His new branch was messier than the old one had ever been, and Chloe watched him begin again, listening, repairing, earning trust one small action at a time. She saw how tired leadership made him, how much he gave away before admitting he needed anything back. So she started showing up with food, not fancy food, mostly sandwiches, soup, and once a box of cupcakes that tipped over in her car and arrived looking like frosting had survived a natural disaster. Noah ate them anyway. They're structurally compromised, he said. They have feelings. They have no roof. You fix things, remember? He smiled and took another bite. Their romance did not become perfect. It became real. They argued once about distance. Chloe worried she was building her life around waiting for weekends. Noah worried he was asking too much of her without meaning to. For a few days, both of them became painfully polite, which Ava diagnosed as emotional food poisoning. Finally, Chloe drove to his branch on a rainy Thursday night and found him alone in the lobby, replacing a broken door handle because apparently job titles still meant nothing to him. She stood there dripping rainwater on the floor and said she did not want a love that existed only in the spaces left over after work. Noah put down the screwdriver, then admitted he was afraid that if he needed her too openly, he would become one more thing she had to carry. That was the first time Chloe understood how deeply they were still learning. She crossed the lobby, took his hand, and told him love was not an unpaid internship. He laughed, then kissed her in the middle of the lobby while rain tapped against the glass doors. After that, they got better at asking. Chloe applied for a senior designer role that allowed partial remote work and occasional travel between branches. She got it because she had earned it, not because of Noah. In fact, he recused himself from every conversation connected to her promotion so aggressively that HR thanked him twice. Ava celebrated by sending a cake that read, "Congrats on not dating your boss anymore." Chloe was horrified. Noah laughed for 5 full minutes. 6 months after the elevator, Chloe and Noah found themselves back in the Seattle office for a joint presentation. The same elevator doors opened. They stepped inside together. This time, Chloe pressed the lobby button. The elevator moved. For one long second, they stared at each other. Chloe whispered, "No." Noah slowly looked at the control panel, then at her. "I can explain." She pointed at him. "Do not touch anything." He held up both hands, smiling. For once, they waited for maintenance, and while the elevator hung between floors, Chloe leaned her head against Noah's shoulder. Just the two of them in the same small metal box where everything had started wrong, and somehow led them exactly where they needed to be. Before you go, take a moment to think about what this story is really about. At first, it seems like a story about a misunderstanding. A woman mistakes a man for a maintenance worker. Sometimes the first impression isn't wrong because we didn't see the person. It's wrong because we only saw one small piece of them. And real love begins when we become curious enough to see the rest. Noah wasn't impressive because he became a director. He was impressive because he would have been the same man even if nobody knew he was one. So here's a question for you. Have you ever completely misjudged someone when you first met them? Or has someone ever underestimated you because of your appearance, job, background, or first impression? What happened afterward? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who might need that reminder today. And if this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. Thanks.